And their zombie takeout causing murder and mayhem.
What's up? Welcome to episode 282 of Zombie Takeout, the B-Movie and Cult Movie Podcast. I'm Uncle John.
And I'm Scotto.
And before we get to this week's movie, we've got some listeners submitted. This is from John Phillips. In reference to last week's episode, our review of Christmas on Mars, he said, the intro of the film, his version of the Immaculate Conception.
It was a Christmas movie.
Yeah, and, it was that bit where the alien super being, I said super genius last week, he's actually credited as the alien super being, kind of takes something out of his mouth, throws it, and it ends up in this, between this woman's legs that were made of stars. Okay, Immaculate Conception kind of does fit the Christmas thing. Yeah, maybe that was it. And also, Danny Meeks on Google Plus on the trailer for this week's movie said, it's a wild ride, some great costumes and catchy music in this one. I agree with the catchy music and costumes. Wild ride, to a Troma fan, maybe not. We'll get to that. And we also have some news. This is from IO9. Kevin Smith is making an Adventures of Buckaroo Banzai TV show. A series based on wonderfully weird 1984 cult science fiction classic, The Adventures of Buckaroo Banzai Across the Eighth Dimension. I so very rarely say the full title.
If it were anybody else that were doing it, I'd be very skeptical of it. But Kevin Smith is perfect, I think.
Is likely coming to TV courtesy of Kevin Smith, and we have The Flash to thank or blame, depending on your point of view. The source of this unholy tidbit is Smith himself, who said on a recent installment of his podcast that his directorial stint on The Flash was such a slam dunk that it opened new doors all over Hollywood. One of those doors was at MGM, a studio that found great success turning Fargo into a TV series. There, Smith was invited to discuss the possibility of doing the same with Buckaroo Banzai. His idea, basically just do the entire movie for one season. Then season 2, you finally do the sequel we've all dreamed about, Buckaroo Banzai against the World Crime League. That's when he had me.
That it's worth it then. Why not?
Smith noted that he wants to reach out to Earl Mac Rausch, the original writer, for input, which is awesome. He also wants to bring back as many actors from the original as possible, but
of course,
but playing the bad guys, not playing their original roles, because you really can't have them in their original roles.
Yeah.
The one possible downside, Smith wants to cast himself as John Big Boutte.
Really?
Yeah. Which, if I recall, was the Black Lectoid who teamed up with Buckaroo. If I remember correctly, it's been a while.
You've got me scrambling to look it up. But
Battery was one of the villains. I think maybe Vincent Schiavelli's character, because he wasn't the primary villain, was he? Wasn't Lithgow, I don't think.
It was Christopher Lloyd.
Oh, Christopher Lloyd's character. Okay, that actually could work then. I could see Smith in that role. Actually, since he's lost weight and shaved, I've realized that he looks a lot like Christopher Lloyd.
Honestly, I can't see anyone other than Christopher Lloyd in that role.
Well, I mean, at least it's a secondary role, which is fine for Smith. Anyway, finishing the text, an optimistic Smith says a deal was struck, and in the next month he'll take it out, try to find a home for it. That was oddly written. I'm excited as shit, he says. As long as Smith isn't writing, I'm in. If he's producing, obviously that's fine. If he's directing, that's okay. I can see his visual style working for Buckaroo, but not his writing. I've complained about his writing in the past. He always has these moments where, he speaks through a character, instead of in the voice of a character.
I'm on board for this. I hope it's on Netflix.
Mm-hmm.
So it's something that, isn't censored or anything like that.
Well, they mentioned the studio that does Fargo, MGM. That is on
IFC, right?
Is that IFC? Okay.
I think so.
And was that or AMC? I wasn't sure which.
Or one of those FCs.
which means TV, but I don't know that they censor that much. And Buckaroo, I don't really think needs to be censored that much. You know, I think the movie itself is PG. Then again, Smith is involved, so.
Right. So yeah, count me in as excited. I'm in.
I'm optimistic. I'm kind of viewing this much like I'm viewing the Fully Cooley sequels. I'm looking forward to it. I'm hopeful that it will be as good as the original, but I'm very, very skeptical and you know, will reserve judgment until I see it.
If it were Zack Snyder taking this, I'd
Well,
be...
no. And I'm not that anti-Zack Snyder. I liked Watchmen and, you know, infamously Sucker Punch. But, yeah, I wouldn't want him touching Buckaroo Banzai. All right, so on to this week's movie, which is from, well, I'm going to say 1980 because that's the first date on the IMDb page, but there are a few others associated with it.
1980. Just can't.
It is Intrepidos Punks. This was recommended to us by Danny Meeks. Of course, that brings us to the impromptu plot summary, sponsored by 80s movie punks. Same ridiculous hairstyles, but with 90% more violence than the real ones.
And also brought to you by Dinero Caliente, a much better lyric than American Woman.
Oh, yeah.
All right, so the plot of this one, goddamn, we have...
Well, it's kind of like a certain other movie series that you wanted to name this episode after.
We have a group of punks, and some of them are in jail, and their girlfriends plot to get them out. And maybe this portion of the movie was filmed in 1980. I don't know.
It did look very Planet 70s.
Yes, it did.
That's why I'm saying I think it was 80.
So anyway, they rob a bank. They kidnap the jailer's wives, and it's not a spoiler alert because this is all within the first 20 minutes or 15 minutes. They break their boyfriends out of prison. Meanwhile, there are these other two macho cops who are on some other cases, and there's a hilarious car crash, and they then wander about the country, the bikers, dressed a la Road Warriors, which is why that part can't be 1980. This must have been filmed at different times, is what
Perhaps.
I'm thinking.
I do see the Road Warriors similarity, but they're really just classic 80s movie punks. They got mohawks and leather and chains.
But the luchador, as the
it's a Mexican movie.
True. But the leather and the studs and everything, I don't think really came out until after they'd gotten them out of prison.
Maybe, yeah.
And although there were even some during the
well, the rape scene with the band that was before. Yeah,
that's true. So they do get them out. They wander the country. They do various nasty things just for gasoline, which of course that is a very Planet 1970s thing. Of course, the value of gas, because there was a gas crisis,
right? And
the cops are just doing other jobs throughout the movie, which is really weird. The kind of fizzles in the very middle, because they're just kind of both meandering, and then they run out of drugs, so they go back to swindle the mob out of some drugs, and the cops finally get them as their case
because the cops were trying to bust the mobster.
Right. Well, they bust one guy, and then but they miss each other. They busted their weapons supplier,
right.
Weapons dealer, and they finally get the punks as their case, and they come after them, and hilarity ensues.
And this movie opens up with a theme song that, while it was in Spanish and I didn't understand most of the lyrics, I understood enough to realize that it was really on the nose.
Yes. You didn't have the subtitles?
The subtitled version is later in the movie. The second time you hear it, they subtitle it.
Okay. They subtitle a little here and there, but it
really just sums up what the movie is about.
It's really funny. It's like some sort of punk version of the Banana
Yeah, pretty
Splits.
much.
And I love how it just kept getting repeated throughout too.
Hmm.
Like, think about it. Any movie where you see where they have one song,
Hmm.
imagine that song being played. What do you think? 10 times?
Probably, yeah.
The same song 10 times in a movie for it's only an hour and
Hmm.
20 minutes.
And there was another music cue that got played repeatedly. That was a blatant ripoff of Sweet Emotion.
Yes.
Like practically a cover, I would say, and except for there's other section that was a little different. Like they so clearly ripped it off.
Right. Then there was like the Guess Who thing.
Yeah,
And I
exactly.
mean, so like, what? That's not really punk.
Yeah, that too. There was no actual punk in this movie, I don't think.
Right.
But during the opening credits, I also noticed the name of one of the actresses, or the stage name, Princessa Leia. Princess Leia. It was, if it was 80, that makes perfect sense.
But there's like 3 different dates I've seen attached to this. I've seen 80, 83, and 88.
Yeah, also on the IMDb page, it said it was released on February 25th, 1988, which was my 16th birthday, so I find that amusing. I didn't see 83.
Yeah, I've seen it just on other websites that
Okay.
they were thinking it's 83 because if this is pre-Road Warrior, it's amazing. It really is.
Yeah.
That they came up with the look and feel before the Road Warrior.
It might be one of those cases where it took like 7 years to film.
That's true too.
Because it is very, very low budget. Although they do pull off some surprising effects given the obvious lack of budget, like the burning guy. They light this one guy on fire, and his jacket and pants are on fire, or are on in flames, and
Right.
he's spinning around. I mean, we all know how the trick is done, but it usually takes a bit of money to pull it off. At least it did then.
And the Trans Am off the cliff.
Yeah.
Where have I seen it? Somebody has used that scene.
Well,
like
that scene was in anything action related in the 80s.
No, somebody has like taken that clip.
That exact clip? Okay.
Yes, and has used that. It may have been South Park. It may have been a late night guy.
Could have been.
I can't remember where I've seen it before, but it's so fucking funny.
I just watched that and realized how much I missed seeing cars burst into flames as soon as they went off the cliff.
Well, there's so much you could dissect that scene, why it's so goddamn funny. First off, there's no cliff to be seen anywhere during the chase.
Right.
And in the chase, somehow they're shooting at the car. Somehow, from behind the car, they somehow hit the driver's side front tire, which at the end is at the exact opposite side, the outside of the tire they hit.
Magic bullet.
Right. And then after they hit that, all of a sudden this cliff appears that the car is falling off of. And yes, as you say, it just, because they hit the tire, it just bursts into flames before.
And it didn't hit anything. Like, as soon as there was nothing underneath the car, it just blew up.
Yes, it just couldn't handle not having ground beneath it. And then the camera cuts back to the cops. No cliff to be seen again.
Yeah. And another little goof I noticed in that chase scene. One of the bikes had this like 3-person wide back seat. I don't know. I'm sure there's a name for that kind of bike, but I don't know it offhand. And when you saw, the bikers head on, it was very obvious because this one woman was shooting from it. But then when you got the cop's point of view, that bike was nowhere to be seen.
Right.
It was just such an obvious continuity error because that bike was so noticeable.
But I mean, there's, slight gaps in continuity, and then there's just stuff that has me falling out of the chair laughing. Because it's just so funny.
This movie is basically Troma in Spanish without as much gore. In terms of the quality level, it's basically Troma.
Something like that, yeah. I don't know. I think the Troma guys do a bit of a better job on it.
The Troma has a bit more comedy than this had.
This very unintended comedy, I think, but still really fucking funny.
And speaking of unintentional comedy, I would have never thought of it, but mohawks and mustaches really just don't go together. It looks really funny.
I don't remember many punks having facial hair,
Yeah.
actually.
Well, or if they did, it was like a beard, a Abe Lincoln style beard, or something like that. But yeah, just a mustache and a mohawk, just it looks hilarious.
Not like the Spinal Tap chops,
Mm-hmm. And okay, there's one scene that couldn't have been unintentional comedy. Okay, there's this big rape scene, which was preceded by these three older women playing cards and talking
It could
about.
very well be the funniest rape scene in movie history, if you think about it.
Well, just before the rape happened, there's these three women playing cards. Here, four playing cards, like older, like middle-aged women, and one of them is talking about having been in an orgy, with some really disturbing detail. Then the punks bust in and they try to rape them, and while they're raping them, in another room is a band playing.
They turn the rape scene into a music video.
And it's not like they're cutting back to a band playing somewhere else, which is what I thought was happening for a while.
Right.
No, they show them at one point, you can see the band through a door. They're set up like a guitarist, a bassist, and a drummer, all set up in another room while this is all going on. I don't know when they set everything up. They just appeared there somehow.
Oh, right, of course. They just appeared and started rocking. I mean, I know I'm not really that PC of a guy, but damn.
Yeah.
They made a video of the rape scene.
And I think in general, the sex scenes in this movie were kind of ridiculous.
Oh, of course. I mean, they were, like a step below Skinamax.
Yeah. I mean, if they had at least committed to go to Skinamax level, I would have been cool with it, but it was just kind of silly. Rape scene aside.
I've always wondered, were they purposely not simulating sex accurately to avoid trouble, like
That's
to avoid legal
point.
trouble?
Yeah.
Because, I mean, it's either that or, she's riding his belly button.
Yeah, exactly. If you think softcore is kind of ridiculous, this is a step below that.
Not even his belly button. It's above that.
Yeah.
Unless he's an Audi, I suppose. I mean, that's just freakish, man.
Or the one scene where the one guy just walks up to a woman who is nude, like just puts his hand on her back, walks away and starts stroking. And then she like wants to get a piece of him and is really frustrated that she can't because he's just sitting there masturbating.
Now, is it just me? Or did that dude look like Jim Carrey?
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah.
But I think in general, aside from, going to Skinamax level with the sex scenes, this movie really just could have used a lot more gore.
Instead of gore, they went for the shock.
Yeah.
They went for just the randomness of their violence. Which, I mean, to, of course, an audience...
in the 80s, maybe that would have been shocking, but...
Yeah.
Now, not so much, especially for me, a Troma fan.
But if this is 80, I mean, doesn't that predate most Troma anyway?
Yeah, generally, yeah. I think they did a few things in the very late 70s, but that's it.
I mean, if this is a film truly made in 1980, this is a fucking work of genius.
Yeah,
this is a cinematic, original film. I mean, it's crazy how original this is, if this is 1980.
Yeah.
If it's 1988, it's really bad.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So it really does depend on when this was made.
And unfortunately, it's one of the few films we've reviewed that doesn't have a Wikipedia page or really any details about it online. So there's really no way to find out when that is.
I was shocked at how little there was about this, because I tell you, I've seen that Trans Am off the cliff thing.
Well, you mentioned South Park. It wouldn't surprise me if Trey and Matt, found this obscure Mexican movie and pulled a scene from it.
Yeah.
And I actually have no notes for like the second half of the movie.
Really?
Like that ridiculous scene with the guy masturbating is, I think, the last note I took.
You checked out after that.
Pretty much. Okay, the movie is subtitled I Was Nodding Off, and yet I was still able to keep up with the story. Like, it's that uncomplicated. But I really don't have anything else, really, except for the two cops kind of were like bumbling overweight Magnum PIs.
And that was really the real flaw of the movie, is that the cops should have been looking for them the entire movie.
Yeah. And I think the cops really either should have been comic relief or really on their game. They were kind of halfway between.
Right. It was silly that they get sprung out of jail. It's mentioned that these are the cops that put them away in the first place. And they, want to seek vengeance on the cops. But meanwhile, the cops are handling like some other bust here or there, trying to break up some other ring. It just didn't make any sense.
Yeah, when you've got a very violent gang after the cops should be focusing on that case and trying to stay alive.
And then just having them robbed for gas was just, they did it twice.
Right.
They robbed for gas. Like they did the gas station and then they did the gas truck. And, one of those scenes could have been eliminated.
Yeah.
I'd say take out the one with the gas station and the Scott Baio lookalike that they burned.
Yeah. Well, at least because the truck came in later.
Yeah, leave the truck in, and they of course blow up the truck. So which of course that is probably the most unrealistic thing out of the entire film.
Yeah,
because think about it: if you have a gas truck that you're going to blow up, bullshit that you don't stay and watch it blow up. Who the fuck drives away when, there's just going to be a cool explosion, guys. Nothing to see here.
Yeah.
Let's take off.
Well, you do want to get clear, I suppose, but you want to find a place where you can watch it.
Of course. And how much safety was really a concern of theirs?
Fair point. They're
the Intrepidos Punks. They wear the colors of the night.
And a lot of silver in the form of metal.
And they have rock and roll.
And a band that apparently travels with them.
Yeah. Other celebrity lookalikes. The female rapist. Was she Screech from Saved by the Bell? Or was she the maid from the Brady Bunch?
Yeah, I can see it.
It was a tough call.
For a minute at the beginning of that scene, I thought the guys were just going to watch.
And actually, it's the same thing with the Game of Thrones critics. Of all the things to be like, trying to excuse the movie of and the behaviors, it is still rape that is like the... it's a bit rapey, but, guys, they burned somebody on fire. They burned a person who was still alive.
A little girl, actually.
Right, they amuse. I'm talking about the Intrepidos Punks.
Oh, okay. I was thinking Game of Thrones, but yeah, they burned a guy. Yeah, for entertainment.
Right. They torture and
And I could nitpick the science there because that's not quite how gasoline ignites, but I won't.
Of course, right.
This is the whole last movie I'm going to nitpick the science in.
Right.
On to sequels and remakes. I would love to see a remake from Troma.
Definitely.
Just, put light on it, go full gore, full splatter, amp up the nudity, amp up the sex scenes, and just, to use the cliche, turn it all up to 11. Do you keep it in Spanish?
Good question. I don't know.
Could be funny, hearing Troma actors try to speak Spanish.
Maybe someone doing an American version. I don't know.
Yeah. That would probably be the way Troma would go with it. It's just a shame Lemmy's no longer with us because he would fit in the movie perfectly.
He'd be like the captain or something. Or
yeah, exactly.
One of the dealers.
The
patch. Nothing's as authentic like a patch over the eye.
Exactly.
For no reason.
On the brains?
On the brains.
I overall enjoyed it, but I don't think it's quite worth recommending. I'm going to go 3.
You know what? I was really into this, and then it sort of dragged in the middle. But it's just so goddamn funny and so just terribly made. It's a train wreck you've got to see. I'm giving it 4.
All right, and what have we learned?
Punks. They keep using that word, but I don't think they know what it means.
I don't think that means what you think it means.
Also for the record, 3 million pesos now equals a little less than 160,000 US dollars, and 10,000 pesos is currently worth about 545.
Okay, so it's about twice. And I learned that I can actually be bored by sex scenes. I never would have thought so.
It was something like the thing out of Mallrats where it's just like, oh yeah, okay.
Pretty much. All right, so until next time, when we'll be reviewing Ghost in the Shell, going back to anime because this one's been in the news because of the remake. Until then, go to zombietakeout.com, check out the album art, the episode description, of course, the episode itself, which you're already listening to. Links to find us on Facebook, Twitter, Google+, and YouTube. Links to subscribe via RSS and iTunes. Please leave us a rating and a review on iTunes. We'd really appreciate it. Also, if you enjoy the show, spread the word. Give us a little word of mouth. Of course, we appreciate all of the listeners we have, but more would be better. You also find the movie list, every movie we've reviewed so far, and every movie we're going to review, up through, 305 or so. Probably a little past that, because I have no idea what was in order after 300 at this point.
Way ahead.
Yeah. I think 300, by my current calculations, is going to be like November. So it's going to be one of the last movies of the year.
Wow.
Probably going to end up on our best of the year list. I'm just going to guess that now. You also find the request form. If you've got a movie you'd like to hear us review, please leave it on the request form. And, of course, the recommendations list. Almost made it. Yeah, I think if it hadn't gotten a little boring in the second half, if they had kept up the camp, it would have gotten there. Of course, you can email us, zombietakeout@gmail.com, or leave us a voicemail at 414-368-ZTO1, or for the alphanumerically challenged, 414-368-9861. Of course, always remember that you'll always be calling from the middle of Milwaukee, and until next time, always remember, never forget, wherever you go in life, there you are.
Vamos! Vamos!
Anyway, finishing the text, an optimistic Smith says a deal was struck, and in the next month he'll take it out, try to find a home for it. That was oddly written.